All right, today we're diving into something that, at first glance might seem like just ancient philosophy, but it's more like a strategic operating manual for the incredibly complex world we're all trying to navigate.
I mean, think about it. We live in this incredible time, right? Global supply chains, instant communication with anyone on the planet, AI, all this amazing stuff. And yet, doesn't it feel like there's this huge paradox? For all this hyperconnection, so many of us feel more confused, more isolated than ever before.
It's kind of like this. We've built the world's fastest, most complex car. That's our modern world. And we're just flooring it, right? Full speed ahead. But we have no idea how the engine works. We don't even know where we're going. It really feels like we've completely lost the operating manual. But what if that manual isn't actually lost? What if it's just written in a much older language, one we've forgotten how to read? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. An ancient framework that turns out to be an incredibly powerful strategic guide for the challenges we're all facing right here, right now. Okay, so where do we start? Well, it all begins with the map. I mean, think about it. To get anywhere, you need a good map of the territory, a map of reality. And the framework we're talking about offers one that is, well, it's radically bigger and more inclusive than the one most of us are using. This concept is called Fajie, which you can think of as the Dharma realm, and the definition here is absolutely key. It's not just the physical stuff we can see and touch and measure. No, Fajie is the sum total of all phenomena. I mean, everything that exists or comes into being, whether you can see it with your own two eyes or not. So what exactly is on this map? Well, you've got the physical world, of course, atoms, trees, our bodies. But, and this is crucial, it also includes the mental world. Things like our emotions, our ideas, our political views. And then here's where it gets really wild. It even includes what we might call the illusory world. Things like our prejudices, our fantasies, heck, even the ghost in a scary movie. And that leads to a pretty obvious question, right? Wait a second. Why on earth would you put something that isn't objectively real, like a prejudice or a character from a book, on the very same map of reality as, say, a physical chair? Well, the logic is actually incredibly simple and powerful. They're on the map for one reason, because they have real-world consequences. Think about it. If a prejudice in someone's mind determines who gets hired for a job, or if a nightmare keeps you up all night, well, that unreal thing is actively shaping the physical world. So the rule is simple. If it has an effect, it's real enough to go on the map. This actually gets us to the second part of that word, Fajie. The Jie part means boundary. And this is a huge idea. We tend to think of boundaries as being solid, real things, but this framework says, nope, they're almost always just mental projections. There's this great little story about a professor who says, I'm a vegetarian, but I make an exception for lobster. See? His boundary between animal and not animal was totally arbitrary. It was just a line he drew in his own mind. So, follow the logic here. If all the boundaries we think are so real are actually just mental projections, well, that leads us straight to the next huge idea, the fundamental operating logic of the entire universe. And that logic is called yuangqi, or simply interdependence. The idea is so elegant. If no boundary is really real, then it means nothing, and I mean nothing, can possibly exist as a separate independent thing. Everything is interconnected, everything is co-arising with everything else. This isn't presented as some fuzzy belief, by the way. It's positioned as the fundamental operational rule of the universe. The classic example for this makes it super clear. Just picture a single leaf. If you look for leafness inside that leaf, you'll never find it. Why? Because its entire existence depends on everything that isn't the leaf. The sunlight, the soil, the water, the air. You take any of those away and the leaf just disappears. It dissolves right back into the system it came from. Okay, so that's a leaf, but what about us? We feel pretty separate, right? But this same principle applies directly to you and me. We think of our skin as this solid wall, but it's not. It's a porous membrane. The air that was out there a second ago is now in here, becoming part of me. The food that was on your plate is now literally building your cells. There's no hard line. There is no absolute separation between self and the world. All right, let's just pause and recap for a second. We've got this new, much bigger map of reality, and we've learned that its core operating principle is interdependence. So, what do we do with that information? Well, if you accept those two things, there's really only one possible conclusion about how to act. It points to the only truly rational strategy. And that strategy is called lita. It translates to benefiting others. Now, hold on, this isn't some moral plea to just, be a good person. It's framed as a cold, hard, strategic imperative. Because if you're in a deeply interconnected system, then benefiting the other parts of that system is the single most logical way to guarantee your own health and survival.
And this logic boils down to two almost physics-like laws of causality. Law number one, to benefit others is to benefit yourself. Simple enough. And law number two is just the flip side. To harm others is, inevitably, to harm yourself. It's a totally closed-loop system. You can't escape the boomerang effect of your own actions. There's a famous Zen story that illustrates this perfectly. It shows how these two laws play out and how heaven and hell aren't places you go to after you die. They're the direct results of the strategy you choose to use right here and now. So, the story goes like this. The scene is exactly the same in both heaven and hell. There's this incredible feast laid out, but there's a catch. Everyone has these 3-foot-long chopsticks. They're way too long to get the food into your own mouth. Okay, so in hell, what's the strategy? Pure self-interest. Everyone frantically tries to feed themselves, food is flying everywhere, and they all end up starving in frustration. But in heaven? Same room, same food, same long chopsticks. The strategy is different. It's li-ta. Everyone picks up food and simply feeds the person sitting across from them. The outcome? Everybody eats. Everybody is satisfied. It's abundance.
Okay, that is a fantastic story, a powerful parable. But let's be real. Does this benefiting others idea actually hold up in the, cutthroat world of modern business and finance? Does it work in the real world? Let's test the theory. Let's take 2 case studies. First, Washington Mutual, back before the 2008 crash. Their strategy? Pure self-interest. They pushed toxic loans onto people, knowing full well they couldn't afford them. This was textbook harming others for short-term profit. And the outcome? Well, it poisoned the entire financial system, which came right back like a boomerang and led to their own catastrophic collapse. Now, contrast that with SunPower Solar. They had this revolutionary patent worth billions, but instead of hoarding it, they did the opposite. They gave it away for free to their competitors. Why? To grow the entire clean energy industry faster. Their strategy was to benefit the whole system, and the result for them? Massive, sustainable growth and huge contracts. So this really drives home the key insight here. Benefiting others, this idea of lita, it's not some naive, feel-good charity. In a world that is fundamentally interdependent, it is the highest form of enlightened self-interest. It's about investing in the very system that you need to survive, and it turns out that is the ultimate competitive advantage. So look, how can you actually test this for yourself? Here's a super simple experiment you can run, like today. In the very next conversation you have, doesn't matter if it's with a colleague, a family member, the person at the coffee shop, just pause for 1 second and ask yourself one question. How can I benefit this person even in some tiny way? And then just do it. Test the theory and just observe the result. And that leaves us with this final, really provocative thought from the source material. It's this idea that when you dedicate your entire focus to helping others, when you can truly, genuinely forget about yourself for a moment, what you get back in return isn't a loss at all. It's actually the most abundant outcome possible. Something to really think about.